So, welcome back, listeners, to another episode of the Anchor Lake Podcast. I'm your host, Griffin Gushman, here with my co-hosts,
John Drum.
Josh Hernandez.
Jaden White.
And Peter Mang.
and we're here with a very special guest today, Frank Applebaum. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Frank.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Frank Applebaum. I'm a senior at Claremont McKenna College.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the pod today, Frank. We're happy to have you here. So I guess we'll just kickstart off today with, obviously we've seen a lot of news about you these past couple weeks between wrapping up your NCAA career with a new best time, capping off, a career that saw you earn 2 NCAA championships, multiple records in the 200 fly, and now announcing your transfer to Cal Berkeley. So I guess, loop us in on everything that's been going on these past few weeks.
Sure. I think I should start with NCAAs, just because it's on the mind. I won the 2 fly the first 2 years I was there, and then this year, right, got second. Always stings to win it twice and then get second the last year. But overall, I'm still really pleased with my meet. And definitely, I guess I'd probably start to Justin as well. I hope he's watching. Shout out Justin. He's a nice guy and a great competitor. So he ran me down on that last 50 there, which stings. But if there's anyone who I'd like to run me down, I guess it'd be Justin. And it was the best time, right? I have to be happy with the best time. I've actually been pretty consistent, right? I've been pretty consistent over the years. I've dropped time in that 2 fly each year, even if only by a little bit, last year, and that's something to be satisfied with as well. So yeah, the 2 fly, good time. Sucks to get second like that, but great race from Justin. 100 fly was my other main swim there, right? Best time there again, and I was third, which I'm really happy about. Last year, I didn't even make the A final on the 100 fly. I just never put it together. And so I was really happy to squeeze in there and then get third in a best time, 47, 1. It still lags really far behind where my 200 fly is relatively, which I don't have like a good explanation for. I don't feel like I only ever do 200 fly training. I don't know, my tempo is just slow. It lags behind, my 100 always lags behind my 200. Then 2 IM at the meet, not my best work. I was like 2 full seconds off of conference. Sometimes that's kind of just how first swims are at these meets. But the real highlight, I think, from, my senior year NCAAs was our relays, CMS's relays. We had all 5 of our relays at the meet this year, and they all made finals. And then our 4 medley was a final, which was a big deal because 2 years ago, we didn't qualify a single relay. It was just 2 guys there from our team, which, stings. I really liked the experience of having like a whole guys team, and especially like swimming relays, at NCAA finals. That's like fun. It's just kind of the fun part of the sport. So like the big highlight was that we had 5 relays from the team at NCAAs. And that just made it like, then you have a whole team you're, doing the training with after conference, a whole team at the meet. And that was like a big point of, focus for the whole team this year, was that we didn't qualify any relays last year. We got to qualify. We got to qualify some relays. We got to have a guys team there. And so that was like a big highlight for us, that I'm like super pleased with. I loved swimming those relays this year, even if my times weren't quite what they were at conference. It's fun. It's just fun, throwing it down in finals with, your friends on a relay like that. So yeah, I'm pleased overall with my, final NCAA performance. Lots of highlights for sure. Of course, stings to lose that 200 fly, especially on a finish like that your senior year, but that's the game. I've been a benefactor of running kids down for many years. Here I am, that's the way it goes. And then Berkeley. Yeah. So I got another year. I have another year of swimming. And I'll get to do it with, the best of the best. So I'm definitely apprehensive. Like I'm going to be, I'll be getting beat by like a lot of people, pretty badly, very quickly, but like, I'm really excited. I was very uncertain about whether I was going to do this whole 50-year thing for a while. And actually, I guess I'm going to start here. Like this whole process, like I kind of decided against it, at the end of the summer. I wasn't planning on doing a fifth year. I was like, yeah, I know I've got it, but the path is do 4 years of college and then get a job. And that was my plan the whole time, right? I'm not going to do swimming. Swimming's going to end after college. I was totally at peace with that. But then kind of, it's like a month into school, maybe a little more. I was like, am I really just going to say goodbye like this? Especially with this like chance. So I was like, okay, I'll send some emails. I'll see what comes back. And, I sent a few emails and they responded and they were like, okay, let's start the process. And then, I think like halfway through the season, they were like, yep, we'll take you. I was like, oh, okay, I got to do it. If I'm going to do this whole swimming thing for an extra year, I really wanted to do it with like, a really high level team like Berkeley men, where they're, going for NCAA, winning times and stuff like that. I really do like the sport. And so I have this like weird chance to like dedicate a lot of time to swimming for just 1 year. And I'm really excited about doing that. Because again, the whole D3 lifestyle, right, is one where I'm doing like all these things along with swimming. And that was like a very intentional choice that I made. And it's just kind of dumb luck that it worked out that I get to do 4 years of regular college like that. And now I have this like one free year to kind of just do swimming. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah, going to Berkeley. I'm hoping to start training them with them, this summer, and getting right into it. So yeah, there's a long-winded answer to a question there.
Yeah, so you kind of talked about like NCAAs and like a little bit about how you came into like start of school, realized you want to do swimming again. So you said like you originally went into it thinking it was going to be your last year. How did you kind of structure your season? Obviously, you did like really well at your midseason dual meet. You lowered your own national record. You had some really good swims at your conference meet. The 146.3 and the 2 IM was like a particular highlight for you. So how's your kind of like approach to the season? Did you try anything new for senior year? Like anything that explains kind of the breakthrough in the 100 fly and just kind of any thoughts on the season as a whole?
Honestly, I definitely did not do anything new. I think I did maybe a slightly more like focused version of, what I found to work over the years, right? I think I started off like, off-season training. I was in the water very quickly. We had captain's practices and we had a good portion of the team in the water, like right when we got to campus. And then I've got like a good small group of kids here on the team who are like ready to get into it right away. We're excited about, we were doing some doubles early on. Then once the season starts, yeah, I was just, doing what I know works. Like I like hard swimming, eating, sleeping, getting ahead in classes, all that kind of stuff. I don't think I treated it any differently. I think that would have like, even if it is your last one, which for a while I thought it was going to be, before I realized I was actually going to get another year of swimming, but it's still very much the last year of like D3 swimming and college. Like it's kind of the last year of college, these kids who I've been on the team with, these last 3 years, who I've been in classes with over the last 3 years, right? Like it's still my last time in this environment. And I definitely didn't want to do anything differently. I liked it. I liked college, swimming and my classes and my friends and stuff like that. And so I wanted to just like make sure I, appreciated that and found time to do swimming and everything like that. I don't think I did anything differently. Hard mornings, hard afternoons, and then being intentional about like, recovery is, I think the strategy for success for pretty much everyone.
Yeah, yeah, don't fix what's not broken, right? I mean, they say that for a reason. But I mean, since next year you're going to Cal, like you're
Yes.
obviously not going to be in the D3, swimming lifestyle. Like how do you think that's gonna
Sure.
how do you
Yeah,
think it's gonna
it's gonna
change what
change.
you're doing right now?
So I think it's going to be very different. It's going to be like a shock for me, I'm pretty sure. And I'm really excited about it. I guess I can talk a little about training. My training here, like, so the way it works is there's a general schedule for the team, right? We've got afternoon swims, and then the schedule is morning lifts. We got 3 lifts per week, and then afternoon swims every day. And I think what I did this year, that worked was I typically replaced at least one of those, if not two of those lifts with a morning swim. I know you guys have had guys on here who said they really liked their lifting. And there's definitely value. I think it depends on where you're starting from. Like I think if you're a skinnier guy, especially, all of a sudden taking on a bunch of weights can be really helpful. But I found that like the best thing for my swimming was just hard swimming. And so I replaced some morning lifts, and then actually, if work was down that week or something like that, I was doing an extra swim as well. And that only happened because there's just this like group of kids, I guess I'll shout out, Anderson, KD, Lucas, Colin, anybody, I'm sure there's others who have kind of been willing to just like choose to go to these morning practices. They're not a scheduled practice. Charlie doesn't, our coach doesn't give us a set to do. It's just a group of us who show up because, Charlie will open the pool for us. It's, dark out, we're outside, waking up at 6:30 and just like doing a hard set. And I think that's like what gave me success at midseason for sure, is that I jumped on it right away. And then I also think I kind of enjoy that kind of thing. The feeling of, it's a love-hate at least, right? It's hard waking up and then it's cold when you're on the pool deck outside. And then you're tired afterward, very tired. But it kind of feels good to like finish the practice with like a small group of, good friends like that. Then we all go to breakfast together. And I'll definitely remember those like morning practices like very fondly. Like I will not remember them as work or painful, even though in a lot of ways they were. I'll just remember them as like, hard work done with good friends. My point, however, where I'll start this is that like that was like, I think I did 2 to 3 doubles per week, really. Maybe, yeah, I'd say 3 was like the average. But I based them all around like my classes. Like what's my work look like? When do I have this, paper due? I think the difference and I really enjoyed that over the years, right? Definitely that was my choice. I don't think I'll be basing my swimming around my classes next year, right? It'll be the opposite. And in fact, I'm gonna be going very far out of my way to make my classes fit around swimming. Which it's just gonna feel weird. And actually I think the hard part about, D3 swimming, it's not exactly the time commitment. It's like, let's say it's 20 hours of actual time in the pool per week. That's fair, but it's like manageable. The hard part is like, okay, you just did, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of swimming. You've done like 5 practices or whatever, 5 or 6. You're tired after your Wednesday afternoon practice. You're very tired. And now you have to go do a bunch of homework. That's when it really gets like fatiguing. And, what often happens is, right, you're not as productive and you got to stay up later to finish the homework. It just got to get done. And I think that's somewhere where I'll be cutting, my time for swimming next year, right? 10 p.m. is here. I'm done. I'm going to bed. I need to sleep to recover. I'm really excited to like do that kind of thing. Because it's going to feel weird for me at first for sure, but it just kind of sounds exciting. So yeah, there's my D3 to D1 predictions. I hope to come back like in a year and like see how it's different. I haven't actually experienced it. But yeah, I think the hard part of D3 swimming isn't exactly the like time you need to go to practice. It's just like, oh, you go to practice, now you're tired and you have to do all this stuff. And so of course, sometimes you have to work around that. Like if you've got a really important test or paper, you got to know, all right, I can't quite get after it this, Wednesday afternoon practice. I have some serious stuff that has to be done tonight, or tomorrow or whatever that looks like. And I'm excited about the idea for just 1 year that I'm not going to be doing that. So I hope that answers that for you, John.
Sounds like we were
Yeah.
saying to Dalton last time when he's like, we're student athletes, but he's,
Yeah.
being an athlete student. It sounds like that's what you're gonna be doing next year.
Yeah, I definitely think I'll be being an athlete student. I might even just say athlete, and then I go to classes sometimes to fill
Yeah.
that days.
Yeah. And obviously I know you watched it, but when I was interviewing Cooper and asking him about his training for the
Yeah.
two fly, which obviously you raced in the 100 and the 200 fly at nationals, and he kind of broke it down like what he does in each practice and what he kind of focuses on throughout the week. What is like a week? You said a little bit of it in terms of the doubles. What does a week of training for you, at least at CMS, look like in terms of like what are you focusing on in each practice? Like how many yards are you hitting? How much like fly are you doing versus like you do the IM, so you're doing other strokes, obviously. What does that look like?
Okay, yeah, I love talking training. Okay, so I think I'm probably doing, I'd say like 5,000 is my average yardage per practice. I'm not getting up there into the 7,000 pretty much ever. Maybe like very occasionally I'll do a freestyle, I'll do a distance free day. But I pretty much treat distance freestyle as like recovery. If I've done like a really hard, I know not obviously I'm not a distance swimmer, right? If that was my specialty, I'm not saying distance freestyle is easy. Of course not, Peter. Um, but like I think my main sets are almost always going to be like they're really going to hit the legs. My legs are almost I'm a dolphin kicker. So I'd say my hard sets are leg driven. A typical week, it's hard to give a typical week because I really I was really like I'd improvise depending on how classes and other stuff looks. Um, I'd say I did 5,000 yards average. The morning practices that we would work in, I guess typically morning practices would be Wednesday, Friday. I would typically do a lift Monday and then do doubles Wednesday, double swims Wednesday and Friday. And then I would probably lift like once on the weekend. So I'd say average, I lifted like twice per week. If I was really tired, or had some reason that I'm not going to be able to do a double swim productively tomorrow, I'll just do the lift. So sometimes it'd be 3 lifts per week, 3 or 4. And then I like to do like a weekend lift, an easier one, to supplement. Especially if I did a bunch of swims that week, I like to do at least 2 per week. Then the morning swims, I should start here. The morning swims were shorter. They were like an hour and a half tops. It was probably 4,000, maybe sometimes I'd get up to 5,000, but they were like extremely efficient. We would do warm up, a preset, and then a working set. And our morning swims were almost always like hard working sets because we were never exactly sure what the team practice later that day was going to be. And so we wanted to make sure we get one in. Trying to think of like a good set, like what's a good example? Maybe I can give you guys more sets later too, but like a classic or a symbolic morning set that we did, that fits totally in an hour and a half practice. It's like, I think it was 350s on 110, then a 50 easy, then 100 all out, and then 200 easy. And then we do that like 3 times, and that's the whole practice. So it's like warm up, a small preset, then that set, and that's the practice. That was a good set that we did one time. And I'm almost always doing that butterfly. I'm typically just butterflying. I didn't really do that much freestyle training this year because I knew I wasn't going to be on the 8 free relay. So I did mostly butterfly. I'm not even sure I could say I did a lot of IM training. I definitely was working in like backstroke. I did more backstroke this year. But I think the beauty of the short course 2IM, which is definitely how I swam it, is that you can really convincingly fake it with dolphin kicks. And my like butterfly training, especially when we're going like that set that I told you, like especially when you go down to high intensity like that, it's really, really kick driven. So I'm not training IM, but I'm training like it's a lot of dolphin kick training. And that helps out the IM a lot, especially the way I swam it. Like that 146 was like such a great swim for me. I obviously like I wasn't even close to it at NCAAs, and I took it out like a champion. I was 21.9 for my first 50 fly, and then 26.0. It's not even like I died on the backstroke, and I didn't die at the end either. But I mean, I hit the buoy on the first 50, and then I was at least halfway for both walls on the backstroke. So I, just didn't do that much backstroke in my 2IM, right? That was my strategy, is do as much dolphin kick as possible. So yeah, there's some there's some insight into training. Yeah, I wouldn't say I do that much IM, but I do Dolphin Kick. That was my kind of secret for that 2 IM, was do as little of the other strokes as possible. Same thing with breaststroke. Like my pullouts have gotten a lot better over the years. And I let them, I cruise my pullouts a little more than most breaststrokers are doing, just because my breaststroke is not that strong. So if I can juice a little more out of my pullouts, it's probably advantageous because, or at least relative to a breaststroker next to me, maybe. My pullouts are like better than my breaststroke. So I elongate them a little bit, take the distance that I get. And then freestyle, same thing. I try and do dolphin kicks on my freestyle for the last 50.
I don't
I
even
like,
think that's a secret. I don't even think that's a secret. I think
you're right.
any
You're right.
short course IMer who knows
Yeah.
what they're doing
Everyone's
is
figured it out now. Yeah.
is doing
Peter,
underwaters.
Peter,
Yeah.
you don't do any underwaters
That's
in
why I
your
didn't make
IM.
finals in the 2 IM.
Long course
You do
2 AM
like
though.
2
Peter's looking good.
kicks. Yeah,
Yeah,
Peter.
I hope
Peter's a long
I hope
course
you're listening and like
specialist.
you got a notepad out somewhere taking
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm gonna be doing next season, clearly.
Peter, as we saw from my finals 2 fly and NCs, you can't just decide you want to do underwaters on the day of the
Yeah.
race.
Yeah. Yeah, especially those 200 underwaters. Like there, I so directly. I mean, I guess this makes sense. This is obvious, but like I so directly feel them as a result of training. Like if I have been doing hard, painful dolphin kicks for, a month or two now, all right, now I can start doing them. Like I can put it together for a 200. And if I haven't been perfectly consistent and like intentional about hard dolphin kicks for a nice block of training, they're not going to be there in a race, right? It just burns so badly. You can't put them together. So yeah, that was a lot of my training, a lot of like dolphin kick work. And most of it's usually in butterfly sets. Like I do some, hard kick sets, but it's mostly like a butterfly set where I'm trying to push the walls. And yeah, that's a lot of my training. I don't do much freestyle, honestly. I keep trying to. I always say I'm going to work freestyle into my practices, but then when the main set comes around, I'm like, I just got to go for it, butterfly. That I got to go for it. So yeah, there's some training for you, John.
Yeah, and then I guess kind of as a follow-up to that, can you talk to us just a little bit more? You talked about the captain's practices, but what do you do in the off season in terms of, a lot of people say, like, or as we saw at NCAA D1s, Liam Bell said he barely even swam, he just lifted. And then some people obviously, like, they swim a lot over the summer, and like you've dropped every single year you've been at CMS, or so like what do you do in the off season to kind of make sure you're going into the next one prepared?
Sure. Yeah, I'll start by playing devil's advocate on the weightlifting journey. Liam Bell, I couldn't believe it when Liam Bell said he didn't swim this summer, he just lifted. My only explanation for that is breaststrokers. I think breaststrokers and maybe 50 freestylers can get away with that. And then of course you're going to get kids who get away with it. Or who find that to be the most successful. There's individual variation in sport, of course. But I'm a sucker for a good old-fashioned hard swimming. It's much easier to like find time to like lift over the summers and stuff like that. But I have really made a point of swimming with club teams wherever I am over the summer. So it's never, and I never quite make it to be like in-season training, at college. But that's always like the goal, right? I always try and set the bar. I want to get double swims in. I want to be with the club team that has like kids who are faster than me and stuff like that. So yeah, both these last summers, I've trained with club teams. 2 summers ago, I was in Minnesota and I trained with the Aquajets swim team. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one. They're like a really good club team. And I was there for pretty much the whole, or a good portion of the summer. And I got along, I got along so well with the coach there. I really, her name's Coach Kate Lunston. I really like her. And I did some like good training there as well. I was actually there with my friends who grew up on that club team. So that was an epic summer of swimming because, of course, I'm just getting rocked by the age groupers at those practices. Just getting rocked. Pretty much unless it's a short course practice and we're doing like high intensity butterfly work, I was losing to kids like 5 years younger than I was. But I was super like intentional training. Like I was working, I was an intern for something at the time. I think it was, 2 summers ago, I was doing like data management, something or other. And I was swimming, like I would go to a morning before that, and then I would try to go to a practice after that. And if I couldn't because I ended too late, that's when I would do a lift just on my own. So I was definitely swimming over the summer. I try and be really consistent with it. Same thing last summer. Um, I was on Phoenix Swim Club. I was in Arizona. Also, I was getting rocked by kids a lot younger than me. Um, I got along. I really liked the kids there, though. I got along well with them while I was there. And I did some good training. Like I definitely did some good practices. It's tough. It's really hard to work it in during the off season. Like I said, I try and make it as little like an off season as possible, but you never succeed. It's just so hard to work it in with other stuff. It was rare that I'd actually get like good doubles in, and I'm never quite competition shape over these last 2 summers. But I'm not somebody who's just taking it off and doing some weightlifting. I'm like, I got to swim. I found that to be the most successful. And then captain's practices. This is a good one. I definitely am doing, we're doing captain's practices. Like I said, this year we started like the second we got to school, we were sending messages like, guys, we're in the water. Obviously everything's optional, but we're going to have a practice, and the more people show up, the better, because it'll just be like a team practice, right? And same thing last year, definitely the spring, but both of these last 2 years, obviously not including this one, the spring off-season training after NCAAs has been great. We're definitely we're always carrying some energy. And I found there's always a good group of kids here who are like willing to do like hard swims. And like that's kind of, there's a good group who enjoys that kind of thing. I've done some good captain's practices over the years. And I'm back in the water now. Nothing too crazy. I have like a big thesis that I need to write within the next few weeks. So I'm not going to be able to be getting after it, but I'm definitely going to be swimming. And I know we've got, there's, a whole group of kids are going to be, doing hard practices whenever the pool is open, working that around schedule, even though we're not in season. So definitely doing captain's practices, definitely swam over the summers. I've heard many people who do the old, only lift or something like that. I'm just going to get muscular. And sometimes that works, but I think I've actually heard more like stories of that not working. Like basically what happens when you come back is then you got to swim off some of the, extra mass to feel like you can really do, full practices. That's not for everyone, especially breaststrokers, breaststroke. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I like that. I always go to my club team and swim.
Yeah.
But I feel like in my experience, just because like when you go club team, it's long course. Like that's when my season starts. I love
Right.
long course so much.
Right. I'm not a long course swimmer like you are, Peter. So it always, and it definitely like, especially once I start the summer, my long course is so out of practice. Even normally, even when I'm in good shape, like I'm such a dolphin kicker. Like my 100 and 200 fly, if you actually think about how many butterfly strokes I take for the whole race, it's like not that many. It's like a moderate amount, but it like way more than doubles when you do, a long course race.
Yeah.
And so my when I did the long course time trial, um, like I felt like I took it out so easy. And the last 50, I was like experienced like full muscle failure in my like upper body, like, up here and like your delts and stuff like that, like just not grabbing water because they're just so untrained.
I feel like you split that pretty well. I'm not gonna lie.
It turned,
Because
oh,
we
right.
were out pretty similar at the
Yep.
150, and then you just smoked me. And like,
Right.
I actually am like decent at long course, so
Right.
I would be a little more complimentary about yourself. But
Right.
so Frank, why'd you choose CMS? Obviously, you were like a pretty decent recruit coming out of college, out of high school, especially for D3. So why CMS?
Sure. Okay. So, I think that like the most important thing for me when I was like picking colleges, or like the one statistic you look at was like size. I knew very early on I only wanted to go to like a small college. I was willing to like go slightly bigger if I did a visit there and I really liked it, but I really didn't want to go to a big university. Um, and I knew I wanted like small school, and then I really wanted like small classes. where the professors, they know who you are. If you like don't show up to class, they're like, where were you? And if the other kids in the class, like they know who you are, and if they're not in class for some reason. So CMC, it's like a little over 1,000 people, which is really small. But I knew I wanted a small school, and that was like the first thing that put it on the list. Is that small liberal arts college. The college advisors put it on my list, and when I started looking, I was like, oh, this looks good. I visited a bunch of schools though. I think that, a lot of like professors or university, administrators like lament how kids, especially like 17-year-old kids, choose where they go to college, and how like important, how fancy the campus looks and how good the food is in the minds of most, 17-year-old kids. I think the thing that really drew me though was like my recruiting trip. I did a bunch of trips, and I think the reason you like typically choose to go to a place is like the people you meet when you're there. And I just like had a great visit while I was here. Actually, the first thing though that said it was like right when I got here, it was like a 2.5 day visit, and the first thing they did was take me to a class. And the class, it was like 8 students and a professor, and it was just like very lively and like academic. And so I liked it from the start. A lot of the other trips I did, I was either put in sort of bigger classes or like not taking the classes at all. And like the first thing I did when I got here was like go to a classroom where it was just a professor and like 8 or 9 students having like very, educational, like it just looked like the kind of education environment that I really wanted. So there's no question I wanted somewhere small, which like lended to a lot of, D3, some programs. I mean, I was a solid recruit, but I wasn't anything special for sure. And I knew swimming was going to be over once college was over, but I wasn't ready to give it up. I was like, maybe this can help me get in. And, I like the sport. I like the team aspect. And it can definitely fill like a fun role in your life. So there are a few schools on my list. And when I did my visit here, I had a great visit. Like we did some fun activities. And then the two people I spent the night with, one of them was Thayer, Brazil, and the other was Walter. Those are names from CMS swim team that I mentioned because Thayer is still on the team here, and Walter, he graduated 2 years ago, but like I'm like great friends with both of those people. So I met them on my visit. It's not like we became great friends here. It was more just like I got along with them well. And I figured it was like those were like people or the type of people that I could, very happily spend 4 years with. And I don't think that's like the classic way kids make decisions about where they go to college, but like I think it's a very legitimate one. And now both of those kids are like my good friends. Even though Walter graduated 2 years ago, but Thayer, he was my host for one of those nights. And then 2 summers ago, I stayed at his house for most of the summer. And since we're of course like very good friends, so like that was like probably why I decided to come here. I just like met some people I really liked. I was like, oh, D3 swimming school's going to be small, give me good classes where I'll be known by the professor and actually like have good discussion type classes, which is what I wanted. And then I met these like 2 kids. I didn't think I was going to be best friends with them or anything. I was just like, oh, these are nice guys. I think I'll get along with them really well. And like I was right, that was a good call in hindsight, even if maybe it's a riskier way to make a decision based on where you go to college. It worked out for me. And then the other thing. So I'm a senior at CMC, right? But the team is 3 schools. CMC, then Harvey Mudd and Scripps. And during my recruiting visit, I actually spent a ton of time at Harvey Mudd, which is like known for it's an engineering school. I spent a ton of time just like playing Mario Kart at Harvey Mudd during my recruiting visit. And that was another big appeal. Like the campuses are definitely distinct. Like they're not the same college at all. And I kind of like that we're on the same swim team though. So there's reason, like I have friends at Harvey Mudd now, close friends because, we're on the swim team together. So it's cool to, go up to Harvey Mudd, hang out there sometimes. And it's kind of like a added, personality type to the swim team, I would say. Like the cultures of the two schools are definitely different. But I really like that. And I have a bunch of, friends from Harvey Mudd now, and I spent a bunch of time up there during my recruiting trip, and was like, well, I'll like it up here as well if I don't like it at CMC. So yeah, that was why I picked it. I visit, there were a bunch of schools on the list. And I think maybe California. I think I wanted to come to California as well. Most of my friends that I grew up swimming with were going to, NESCACs or UAA schools, right? Like I know indirectly, at least, a lot of people who go to a NESCAC or a UAA Division III swim team. And I'm definitely bummed that I didn't get to like race them as much, except, nationals, of course, over the years. But no, I very much liked it here. And yeah, hopefully that's some insight into why I made the decision. I knew I wanted small from the beginning, though. That was the biggest thing. And so, Division III swim programs were obviously like, right at the top of my list.
Yeah, that's a super cool story, and I'm glad that worked out so well for you, and I'm glad that you could share that sort of cool testament to D3 as well. In a sort of similar vein, one of the biggest pieces of feedback we get is that people love when they, when the guests talk a little bit about maybe life at college outside of swimming. You sort of hinted at, the thesis coming up and whatnot. Talk a little bit about that if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So I'm basically a political science major. It's slightly different, but it's pretty much political science. Where I get lots of those, small classes, lots of like reading, like I do a lot of writing is like most of what I do. I'm also, and then on that note, I guess, I'm a poli-sci major, and then I'm also on mock trial here. I'm on the mock trial team. I really like the mock trial team. They're a lot of fun. It's a very different group than the swim team. And of course, that makes sense, right? It's totally different, type of activity. But I really like the mock trial team. I wonder if they'll watch this. They're a lot of fun. It's another fair size time commitment. But it fluctuates a lot. Like it really depends on if we have a tournament coming up, then all of a sudden there's a lot of prep that goes in like a week or two before that. And of course, technically we're supposed to be prepping, well in advance. But really what happens is right around the tournament weekends, there's like a lot of time. You got to do a lot of memorization and practice with, your attorney, your witness pair. And so I've really liked that I've done the mock, they're good kids. They're a lot of fun to hang out with. And then mock trial has a competition aspect to it as well, which is good for me. Like I tend to do well in those kind of environments. They're in there, I like the competition. It's of course a very different type of competition than swimming is, but fun nonetheless, and it's a great team. So there, I guess I'm, political science, I'm on mock trial. I think, you could probably assume I'm going like the, legal direction, but I haven't really, I'm sticking out the liberal arts education to the bitter end. I don't really have a particular passion or anything like that. So it's kind of led me to strategy consulting. That's what I'll be doing this summer. I'll be a strategy consulting intern. What else? I've got a good one. I would definitely consider myself a gamer. I'm sort of controversial. I'm really a phone gamer. I've loved the Supercell games over the years. I don't know if any of you guys are into Clash Royale, Clash of Clans. I was
I don't
big
even
into
know
Clash
right
Royale.
now. Ours
I was-
are like not as much anymore, but our entire team, like right after, right around, ever since our training trip, honestly, has been like
Really?
hopelessly addicted to Brawl Stars.
Brawl Stars. Yeah.
Our
So
entire men's team, but
okay, yeah. So Brawl Stars, I'm not into Brawl Stars right now. I was actually like, just to give you a sense of how into it was, I remember I think Brawl Stars first was released my sophomore year of high school. And I was one of those kids who made a Canadian Apple ID just to download it early to get cracking at Brawl Stars. Like new Supercell game, gotta start playing. Um, but I've never really taken that one competitively. It's fun, but I don't know. I never really got into that one. I was big into Clash Royale for like on and off for many years. I think I was pretty good. Like I was good at Clash Royale. I'm willing to say that, publicly. I was a good Clash Royale player.
how many trophies did you have? What was your like best
Well,
season
okay.
finish
See,
and all that stuff?
so then my follow-up to Clash Royale, just so you know I'm a true player, is that I'm not playing it anymore. It's just not that fun. They've
Evolutions.
released, they've like messed around with it. They've totally, yeah, evolution cars, they level 15. Even like last year, I played it a little bit and I just couldn't get it. I just couldn't really get into it. I got into it a little bit for like at the beginning of last year, right around when they changed it so that there was like a Legends League. Is when I was like, all right, I gotta get to Legends. And I played for like, I don't know, like I played consistently for like a few months. But then I lost interest again. Um, I think it's such a good game. I don't like it right now though. I can't get into it.
I was on the
Um,
same wave as you, man. I had a
yeah.
Canadian Apple ID, and that's when I got Clash Royale, and I
Yeah.
used that same ID to get Brawl Stars when it came out before global release. Like I remember when it was still like a vertical game before they
Yeah.
switched it over.
Yep. Yep. That's
Oh
good points.
man, dude. Now the only game I play is Clash of Clans. I mean, that's the only one that's
Your
just like
Clash
low
Clans.
key enough. Like you
Yeah.
can, you log on once a day, and then that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I've got Clash of Clans as well. I've been, I'm on and off with that one for sure. The problem, I can't get into it if it's like low key like that though. It's only fun for me when there's like a real like competitive component to it. So like I have to be doing like clan wars. Like that's where the skill of Clash of Clans is. And
Oh, you
the
like
supplies
competitive
only
games,
being
don't you? Sounds like
and
you need to
that's
get a PC.
yes, and that's my plan. Once I'm like once I've run the route with my phone games, which maybe will never happen. Maybe that'll never happen. But I'll probably make the transition to PC games.
Frank, for you and for everyone else
Um,
listening to this,
Yeah.
here's a hack for you that we learned from Cooper. If you're ever playing a mobile game, lay on your stomach on your bed so you can stretch out
Right.
your spine.
Right. I hope Cooper is watching here. I talked to him about that claim at NCAA's. I thought it was a bit. I thought he was just joking around. But no,
yeah,
he
so did
believed
we.
that.
Cooper doesn't joke.
He
What
does
what
not
a funny
joke.
guy.
Not at all.
That's
Yeah.
an interesting hypothesis, Cooper, if you're watching. Interesting. I don't know what else to say
Yeah.
about that one.
Peter, you need to put this man onto Genshin Impact on the
Genshin
iPad.
Impact.
He's
No,
Oh
I
like,
can get
God,
No,
no.
I that those days have long since passed me, and that thank God that's gone.
yeah, you've moved
Don't
on to
don't do
Honkai
that.
Star Rails.
I did.
I
Much
know.
less to a time commitment.
Yeah, I won't be
Anyway,
getting into it. I'm between games right now.
um,
Unfortunately, I haven't really been into any games for a little
yeah,
while now. I blame Supercell mostly. I don't like a lot of the changes they made. Um, but I don't know. I'm sure it's other stuff. I've been like busy as
yeah,
well. Hard to spend that many hours gaming.
yeah.
Like
And then, I guess because you did mention it to me a little bit on the decadencies, but you said you had some hot takes about swimming, about like
ah,
recovery and
yes,
training. So, I
yes.
guess what are some of your hot takes?
Okay. All right. So I kind of hinted at this earlier, but I think that especially for us D3 swimmers and just swimming generally, or sports or really anything, I think people tend to focus way too much on like placebo stuff or stuff that doesn't actually do anything. So the classic one that I've had a bunch of debates about is cupping. I don't know. I don't know if any of you guys are cuppers. Um, like I just don't think that does anything. And that's controversial because a lot of really, swimmers much better than myself do cupping, religiously. Um, but I think the way to get faster at swimming or the way to swim faster at meets is to practice really hard. When you're in the water, try really hard. Then when you're out of the water, eat like a fairly balanced diet and then make sure it's enough, and then sleep very consistently enough hours, and that's like how you get faster. So a lot of like supplements or cupping or like even some like silly stuff like that's maybe a little more scientifically backed, like I don't know, beetroot juice or
You
any
don't
of
even
these.
take creatine?
No, not on creatine. That one, you're right. I think would is
Yeah.
the one I would consider. There is like scientific backing for it. I think you have to be careful again because creatine it'll make you heavier. It'll definitely help your weightlifting, but you have to be careful. You don't want to like bulk up and find yourself not able to swim. But there is definitely science behind that one, and there's a lot, right? I think the main benefit, right, is that it allows you to train harder. I think is what most people are
Yeah,
saying.
it's that's the only supplement that's been peer reviewed in swimming
That's right.
specifically.
That's
I'll
right.
admit
It's really the
that
only one.
yeah, I don't think that like litmus test that they sort of used was like super great, but it did improve aerobic capacity over like a 1050's best average
Yeah.
set.
Yeah.
Over like, and it was only in like a 3 or 4 week period too. So it's like a really short amount of time that it improved it. And I agree with that one because it's been so well researched. But I think you also had an interesting take on ice baths that I completely agree with. And that's sort of like as like the rice method is sort of being like cycled out, like the rest, ice, compression, elevation thing. I think
Yeah.
that the meta definitely is heat for recovery a lot of the time because it definitely draws more blood into the muscles. Like I know you said that like ice baths are kind of crap, but
Well, specifically, what I think is that ice baths, like after practice to help recover, and this one's definitely controversial. People will definitely like not agree with
yeah,
me here. I'm okay with that. Ice baths after practice, I don't think are really helping you recover. I think like the proposed mechanism is that it reduces swelling, which you're going to have after really hard practice because you just, tore a bunch of muscles, something like that. Bunch of micro tears. The whole system is swollen because you just like, gave it this really intense stimulus. And an ice bath will reduce that swelling in theory. But I don't actually think that that's like necessarily a good thing. And I'm not alone in this, right? Like I think a lot of people are saying actually that, swelling and the reaction that your body has to hard workout is exactly what makes it adapt over time. What you need to do is eat and sleep after you do that. And then over time, your body will change. But I just am not a believer in ice baths, especially like after practice. I think there's a better reason to do them like at meets. You're not trying to, improve or change your body over time at swim meets. What you really want to do is just recover for the next day, right? You just want to reduce, become totally recovered, get rid of all that swelling, all that stuff you want out of your body for your next day of competition or something like that. But I'm definitely not doing ice baths. I know that one's a little controversial as well. A lot of people really like their ice baths. Fair enough, I guess. And everybody has some. I'm sure I have some very unscientifically backed, pre-race strategy, something like that. But if I was aware of it, I'd be like, actually, this isn't doing anything. Caffeine works. Other than that, yeah, cupping or beet juice. I've had a bunch of debates over the years about cupping in particular. There's a lot of people around me who really like it. And there's a lot of people out there who really like cupping, but I'm not one of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I was gonna say this, Frank. Like, I get where you're coming from. Like, my club coaches just say this. They say like, like the best recovery method is one that you think works, right? Like, is it
Right.
like scientifically proven that ice baths work? Like, I don't know. Like, that's totally debatable, right? But I think to some extent, like if the placebo works, is it really a placebo?
That's a fair point. No, and definitely with swimming, there is a huge mental component. And if someone's like, I cupped yesterday, I know I'm going to swim fast now. And then maybe that actually makes them swim fast because now they're, all confident about the race. Fair enough. I'm not knocking that, of course. Placebo effect is very powerful and a real thing that affects your performance. If that's what does it for you, that's what does it for you. I'm just very, very skeptical of a lot of the claims that people make about it, especially when they'll give you like some scientific mechanism for how it works. Like, oh, it draws blood, increases circulation. When there's like, is there evidence that does that? Why would that actually help you swim faster is not clear to me. So yeah, that's those are some of my controversial takes. What's another? I feel like I have some more. I guess, yeah, anytime you feel like you're anytime someone tells me they're adding this kind of thing that's different from what everyone else is doing, I'm kind of like, you probably just need hard swimming, eating, and sleeping. And
Yeah.
that's faster over
Speaking
time.
of practices, what any hot trends of what you like to practice in?
Oh, right. Yes. Yes. Shout out. I think I can do shout outs here. Shout out to anyone who wears a jammer. I'm a longtime jammer wearer. Shout out to all those who also are joining me in this cause. It's a worthy cause. It's just so much more stylish. Or at least that's the argument I'm going with.
Do you get
Although,
them to give you the team issued like
no,
CMS
no,
jammer?
so I wear the CMS Speedo for meets because I didn't, I wasn't going to ask him to make me a special jammer. I'm going to wear the team Speedo for meets, but for practice, I wear a CMS cap, right? It's clear that I'm, wearing my team, and I wear the jammer. I think my reasoning, I think I was talking to you guys about this at the meet. I didn't switch in high school. I just wore a jammer. And then by the time you get to college, the reason I would have switched would be like, everyone else is doing it. Everyone else wears a Speedo, so you should too. But that's like not a great reason for me. If you gave me it's superior and it lasts longer, or you swim faster in it, or something that's more comfortable, maybe I'd be, open to it. But just telling me everyone else does it isn't good enough. That being said, I think I have decided that I will give it up for next year. I think I will be wearing a Speedo. Just because I don't want to be the guy who shows up in a jammer and is just getting rocked by everyone else,
Well, how about a deal?
so-
If you get the Cal men's team to all start wearing jammers, we'll fly you
Dude,
out for an in-person interview.
Dude, I'm telling you, just give it some time. Okay, everybody's gonna be wearing jammers again in a few years. All right, fashion trends, they come and they go. All right, the Speedos are in right now. I know they're all cool, but a few years, everybody will be wearing a jammer
We
again.
need a peer-reviewed study on the effect of jammers on swim performance. Something like it lifts up your hips more in practice,
It's like
like
a-
I mean,
simulates
you would
a
think
racing
it
suit or
probably makes
something.
you faster.
Yeah,
Like,
it
probably
has to be
would.
because it's more like a racing suit, right? And
It
also,
makes it
Frank,
faster. That's a clear example.
Yeah.
they made Shaquille O'Neal his own custom shoes because his feet were so big. I mean, if you're one of the all-time greats, they should just make you a jammer. Like I feel like
Well,
if you just put yourself out there and say make me a jammer, then they'll do it for you.
I mean, you're right. If I really made a fuss about it, they probably, I mean, I think there's guys who got, there's some kids who really like practicing in dome caps. They got a dome cap. I'm sure I could have made a fuss about it. But the whole
We got dome
point of me
caps.
wearing the jammer is that I'm not like, the whole argument is that I'm trying really hard not to make a fuss, right? It's like if someone's like, oh, you need to switch to this Speedo. I'm like, I don't care. I just have a jammer right now. That's what I've always worn. I'm just gonna keep doing it. So yeah, just a little shout out to the jammer wearers out there. I don't think I'll be a member of the cause anymore. I think I've kind of decided that that's one of the small prices I'll pay for swimming with the big boys. But I've worn a jammer all these years, and I'm proud of it. It gets a really nice jammer tan line, especially early in the season. So that's pretty good,
How do
pretty
you
cool.
do that swimming in California? Like,
Yeah, we sunscreen up. I'm a good sunscreener. But yeah, no, the jammer tan lines are very stylish. I look really good walking around campus in those. The jammer tan.
mean,
John and Peter need to get on that. Like, I think if John and Peter really push for
Peter, I
our
feel like
men's
I
team
feel-
to get some
No,
jammers.
for wearing jammers.
oh,
Yeah.
me
I
to
feel like
wear
Peter, I feel like you'd be willing to join me in this cause. No, you're not willing?
I used to wear jammers for like a long time. I wore jammers
Yeah.
like my freshman year of high school. I switched to Speedos and I just think they're much more comfortable. Like for me, Speedos are more comfortable. That's why I wear Speedos. I don't wear
They
them because
also
everyone else
sit
wears them.
very high on Peter's hips too,
They
which
do.
is
They do.
an added style component.
Yeah,
That's
that's
all
true.
right, Frank, what do you think about like flipping the script and doing like the Cam McAvoy just wearing a tech suit like every day in
Actually, oh, there's
practice?
somebody out there. I didn't know he was doing that, but I've talked about this before. I really another thing that I worked into practice this year was a lot more suited swims. I think like practically I could never wear a tech suit every day because they're so expensive. But and I'm not sure I would literally wear one every day. But tech suits really do change how you swim. And like they change where your hips are. They're going to change what muscles you're using. They're going to change how the blood is like flowing up and down, something like that. It really feels very different racing with a tech suit on from a regular, practice suit. And so I think there's a lot of value in practicing a lot with the tech suits on. Especially, I really notice it. I mean, I notice it a lot this year, especially. Like the feeling in the water after, a taper, and then you throw on these, tech suits that are like so tight. They've got all these bands. They're just like changing how your, legs move, where your hips are. I like have no idea what my count is for Dolphin Kicks. My stroke count is all messed up. I'm like, missing a bunch of finishes and walls. And it's really common I feel like our conference meet this year, or at least last year for sure. Like everyone was like, oh, I missed the wall, I missed the finish. And I'm like, yeah, that's something you got to practice. Like you got to practice That's why you missed it, you know. And the reason you missed it is because you didn't practice that much because we didn't do that many suited races. It just feels so different. You know, you do the distance per stroke, how much, you know, distance you get per kick is going to be so different when you have these like really fancy, expensive, and like, stroke altering suits on. And so I was definitely trying to do a lot more suited swims this year, especially in like the 50 and 100 fly. When I like increase my distance per stroke a little bit, like for my 200, it feels kind of just like good. But for the 50 and 100 fly, like I just can't hit the breakouts with the suit on. It just never works. Because I'm just moving so much quicker and getting so much more distance per kick than I'm like ever used to. So I'm always like botching my breakouts or my walls. I botched my like 50 fly breakouts almost every time I swam the 50 fly this year. My 50 free, I'm super proud of my 50 free. Let me take a moment. I was a 19.7 50 free relay at our conference meet this year, which feels good. I've always been telling people as a sprinter and they never believe me. They say, Frank, no, you got to do the 2 fly. I'm like, I'm a 50 freestyler at heart. I'm not, but I had a good 50 free this year. And then at nationals on our 2 free relay, totally missed the wall. I just flipped like well before the wall because I just have no idea what, like, it was just dumb luck that I hit it at SkyX. I mean, my, practice with swimming at that speed, with that, with the tech suit on, with the taper and everything, I just like, I don't know how many kicks I should do. I don't know how many dolphin kicks I should do. I'm missing the walls, all that stuff. So I'm a big believer in working more suited swims in. And I think a lot of people, I think we're kind of figuring that out, actually. I think a lot of teams are having people do races
I
pretty regularly.
100% back you up on this one. I think more people need to hear this. You got to swim in a suit and get used to swimming in a suit. And I feel like a lot of people like shy away from it because they're just like, oh my God, like if I the mental feeling of like adding
Yeah,
time in a suit
yeah,
like gets you, right? But I just think like adding is pretty normal. Like it's very hard to drop time. Like you've got to think about it. Like you're improving
yeah,
from like your best, right? Like you got to like
yeah.
get used to it and just like start seeing as like dropping time as something that's like, you should appreciate more. So you should definitely wear a suit like as much as you can.
Dude, yeah, I agree with you. That's the reason people will say I don't want to do it is they're like, oh, I really need the mental component of putting it on the meet and then feeling so much faster. And I mean, I understand like why it might feel, harsh to like be swimming with the suit on and not going to best time. But like also if you're in practice, you're just doing a practice swim, like you have ways to explain why you're not hitting your best time that are reasonable. And also like you just swim differently. Like there's different muscles that are, activating. I know from like my legs get like the circulation is worse because it's so much tighter. Um, and like you need to like train with that because that's how you're gonna race. And I think a lot of like complaints about tech suits, like especially like after the super suit era and everything like that, they were like, even the swimmers who were swimming really well with them were like, I don't like this. This changes how we swim. And like I understand why they're saying that. Like it's just different.
And the other side of
Yeah.
that token is instead of looking at an opportunity to swim and go like, oh my God, what if I add time? Why don't you look at it and say, what if I drop time? Right? Like we can also
Right.
like also be more positive about it too.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
Bob Bowman has sort of started the culture on that of like swimming fast all year round. And like you can
Yep.
still drop time in a dual meet and like drop time at the end of the season, right? I think it's like just like rehearsal, you know? And Jaden and I have started doing this because I completely agree with what you said, is we do like a fast Friday every week in a suit and it completely changes stuff down to like the fundamentals, like stroke count. Like in a 50 free, I will like fully take one less stroke per 25.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely something that you need to account for. And I think like if you're not like doing it, I think you're just like stupid to put it bluntly. Because it's like if you were to show up at, to the driving range every day with a completely different set of clubs than you intended to use, in a tournament, like it just doesn't make any sense. Or if you were to like practice in soccer with flip-flops instead of cleats, I mean, I just don't understand it. So, I think that like the more advantage you have to rehearse stuff that's going to happen in a competition, the better you'll be.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously like tech suits are expensive and like you can't just run through them. But I feel like if you're like once you reach the time where you're swimming in college, you probably have at least one like old tech suit that you don't really use anymore in meets. And even that's helpful to throw on. So yeah.
Especially, I think especially if you have a Mizuno, I think those suits really like they
Yeah.
hold their form. They're not quite crisp, and yeah, they stretch a little bit, but compared to the other, like it still is very much like wearing a really nice tech suit, even after like 20 uses or something like that. I've had one that's just in my swim locker. I pretty much wore the same one all year for our suited practices, and I mean, you know, it really works as a tech suit, especially those Mizunos. They really hold their form. I think one of my favorite sets this year that we do a few times is 6 100s on 6 minutes. And, you know, that's it. That one we'll do from a push usually because we rotate this way we do rest. But yeah, I have a suit in my locker all year. And whenever we're doing something like really, really high intensity like that, I like to have the suit on. That's usually, I'd say I'm doing a suited practice once every 2 weeks at least. And I like to do it more. Sometimes Anderson and I were doing them in the mornings. The other set that I really like with the suit on is 4 200s on 16 minutes. That's a classic.
Fly.
No, usually I'll rotate actually. I'll do like a fly, a free, and I am a fly again is usually how I'll do, or maybe I'll do the fly 1 second. And I'm definitely someone who I like to train fast. Especially if I did like an aerobic day the day before a really hard high intensity set and I'm throwing a Mizuno on, I can be like not that far. I'm not that far from my best times. When I have a start, if I have a race next to me, I really like to send those swims and practice. I think that's because that's how you it's the closest thing you can get to racing. That's like the best kind of training. And really, really high lactate stuff is how I'm doing most butterfly training. Yeah, like 4 200s. That's not common. Okay, that's a test set here and there. The 4 200s or 6 100s on 6. I'd say it's more like my core butterfly training. I'd say is 50s, like 50s on either a minute or 50 seconds. Another test set we have is like 8 rounds of 450s on a minute. That is a killer. That I just kind of walk like a zombie around for the next day or two. After a set like that. I'd say I'm really only doing high volume butterfly, and I'm not even talking that high volume. Like I think we do a set early towards the beginning of the season. Our volume's higher because Charlie likes to get us in shape by doing higher volume. So I'm doing I think there's one or two sets we have that are hundreds fly. I'll do hundreds fly on 130, 4 of them fast, or maybe I think we have one set that's 8. No, I don't think I've ever done 8. I think it's 4. It's like rounds of 4 100s on 130. That's probably the longest I'll go for fly because otherwise you're kind of falling apart for butterfly. So I really like to keep it high intensity. But I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing. Maybe I need to be doing some more fly, more volume. That's kind of what I found to work that's what I like doing the most though, the really fast stuff, especially for butterfly. IM stuff. I don't know how to do IM training. I just do dolphin kick training.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty fair and pretty expected. And shout out to Mizuno's. I completely agree with you. John gave me this one for my mile last year at UAs. I was just so done with this meet. I was having the worst meet of my life last year in our conference championship. And John was I don't want to put another use into this brand new Mizuno. Can I just get your old one? He's like, yeah, I've had this since my junior year of high school. Dropped 30 seconds in that mile. Then I wore it this is already on its 12th swim. I wore it for 2 more races that summer and then a whole nother meet in the fall. And I just started using it as my practice suit. And I wore it for a couple prelim races too this year. So it's on use number 30, at this point, honest to God, it's been through about 30 uses. And still better than my Speedo Pure Valor. So
they are great. I'm a real believer in the Mizunos. They're the only tech suits that I have. They just do that. Yeah. Well, one, they last. They're just it's a good purchase. And then 2, they do something to my dolphin kicks. It just feels like cheating. I think people who are less dolphin kick oriented don't quite reap the same benefits of Mizunos that I feel like I do. But yeah, a lot of people also still say they're the best.
No, I don't dolphin kick, but I still love the Mizuno. My hips are so
Yeah,
high.
you're preaching to the choir, Frank.
Yeah,
We
good.
we
Yeah, I mean,
all
I
love
talked
the
to-
Mizunos here.
I talked to Crow Thorson on the deck at NC's, and I was like, oh, that's kind of crazy. Like you PB'd at UAAs and then you still managed to come in and drop like a whole nother second in prelims of the two fly at NCAAs to like a final. I was like, oh, like, did you do a lot of fly? And he was like, nah, like I was focused on my 4 AM. But to be honest, like I wore a Mizuno for the first time and like it was crazy. Like it was like changed my whole race. And I was like, yep, makes sense.
Right. So and then
But
that's good evidence though for why you need to like practice with it as well. Like it literally, it's just different kind of swimming, faster overall, but
yeah,
if you're really gonna like figure out the details, you need to be, racing with it on.
yeah,
So I love a good Mizuno
yeah.
practice.
Well, anyway, we'll probably look to wrap it up here, but
But
is there anyone like
shout
you've
outs.
watched the videos, so
Yeah.
we let you shout some people out, but is there anyone you want to shout out? Doesn't have to be swimming, just in general.
Sure. I guess I kind of mentioned them earlier. I do want to shout out like the group of kids on our team who's doing sort of extra morning swims this year. It like that was definitely that's where I, attribute like it's really hard to get faster, like to go best times, like Peter was saying. Like it's really hard to keep training, not just at a level that lets you maintain, but actually you need to train, really hard to keep getting faster. And the only reason I was able to do that this year is because we got like a really good group of kids who are doing extra mornings, then they're there in the afternoon. And that's like a really tight relationship you have with those kids doing the extra morning. So anybody who's done a hard morning with me this year, I really am appreciative. It's there are moments I'll remember very fondly, even though they were like hard and painful, Shout outs. Shout out Justin, of course, Justin Finkel. I hope he watches this. And I hope he does one of these. I don't know if you guys have talked to him, but I would really like some, like, I wish I want to get to know him a little better. I really want some insights into like how he trains and stuff like that, some of his philosophies. And he really is like a great competitor. He's been a great race these last 2 years. Of course, I'm bummed for him to have gotten me this year. And I'm bummed that I don't get to race him again next year, but I'll definitely be following him. And I really hope he's following me. You have a good relationship with your competitors. Maybe Jesse as well. I hope Jesse does one of these. I mean, we've kind of niche partitioned, he does 100 fly out of two. I do 200, but I was like talking to him at NCAAs these last few years. As other flyer, we're the same year. I hope he does one of these as well. I just kind of want to know. There's a bunch of guys, actually a bunch of kids. There's other kids, so I'm sure I can't think of right now, but who I'm like really interested in, like some of their insights, and I don't really know them, but I'd like to hear about their training philosophies, stuff like that. So hopefully you guys have some more guests soon.
We got a big one on Sunday. We don't. He may or may not be a student at the NYU School of Medicine.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one as well. And hopefully I can like give some interesting thoughts now, or maybe not now, but in the future, like going D3, and then I'm gonna get this one like real D1 year.
Yeah.
Having I think it's gonna be an interesting experience. I hope to have some good thoughts for it.
like
Yeah,
I
we'd love
said,
to talk to like Tanner Fillion about that
Oh
because
gosh,
obviously he had a
you guys
great
see how
year
well he
and did very
swam. Oh
well.
my gosh, finals in the two back. Yeah,
you and
wow.
Tanner are like evil Derek Moss. You're
Yeah.
D3 to D1.
Yeah, I mean,
And Frank, I'm
wow.
just saying, if you really want to race Justin Finkel again, I mean the beautiful skies of Cleveland await. So
Right.
it's not too
Yeah,
late to
hey,
stick your
I'm
name
sure I'll be
there.
around, guys. I'm sure I'll be around at some point in Cleveland. I really do. I think I live like 5 minutes away from, maybe 10 minutes away from like main campus. Um, Driven through there all the time. Do you guys ever swim at CSU? Do you ever swim at the CSU pool?
I'm
Love
going to be
it.
swimming at
Several
CSU.
The CSU pool is fast and has a current and long course. I just wanted to throw that
It,
out there.
it has a current and long course. Yes, it does. Yes, it very much does. But I love that pool. That was like where all my like good races as an age grouper were. And my teams practice there sometimes. So over the summers we usually have that pool. I love the CSU pool. Many good meets have been had there.
Well, Frank, we're excited to potentially practice with you if
Yeah.
you ever make your way back up to Cleveland. It was great having you on the pod. We really appreciate your thoughts, and we appreciate the shout outs. It's been great having you on here. I know for our listeners, we're probably hitting about the hour mark at this point, post edits, etc. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. It's been another great episode of the Anchor Leg Podcast, and thanks for stopping by, Frank. We'll see all you listeners next time.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
All right.